The flashes exploded, cameras turned, and there she was, a girl with a razor-sharp gaze, cropped, rebellious hair, and a walk that seemed to challenge the very foundations of the runway. Eliza Cummings did not emerge like a delicate flower placed gently on stage. She came like fire, raw, untamed, and impossible to ignore. In an era when the fashion industry still glorified soft femininity and classic allure, Eliza appeared as a paradox, rough yet refined, rebellious yet magnetic. Spectators were stunned. How could a face so far from sweet dominate every lens? High-end magazines described her as the raw material of a new generation, while designers saw in her the embodiment of a modern warrior. In an instant, Eliza forced the fashion world to ask a terrifying question. Could the old standards survive this storm? Her journey was never the polished fairy tale told in glossy magazines. It was a film of shadows and light, where glamour was forever entwined with struggle, and where rebellion became a golden ticket to stardom, but one carrying an unthinkable price. That duality is what placed Eliza Cummings among the unforgettable figures of her time, a reminder that fashion is not always about perfection, but about disruption. And hidden within her story is a deeper echo, the same haunting echo that runs through the tales of the 90-second Supermodels, reminding us how dazzling beauty and the dark side of fashion always coexist in dangerous harmony. No one is born a supermodel. Before she became the spark of the runway, Eliza Cummings was just a girl growing up among damp walls, gray streets, and the biting winds of Portsmouth, a port city in England. Her family had little money, but they gave her something more valuable than wealth: resilience. Her mother taught her to walk tall. Her father told her never to bow under pressure. The dinners were modest, but around the table there was honesty. You must always know who you are. From childhood, Eliza never blended in. While other girls loved floral dresses and pretty dolls, she dug through second-hand shops, wearing oversized coats and scuffed shoes like protective armor. She drew sharp faces in the margins of her notebooks, eyes elongated, hair cropped short, as if predicting a future portrait of herself. In school, she was quiet, but her gaze carried weight, observing everything as though documenting a private film. At 15, while her classmates experimented with lip gloss and curls, Eliza cut off her long hair in one sweep. The move shocked her family and drew teasing from friends, who called her odd and too tough. Yet, in that moment, something was revealed, a hidden energy that had been waiting to ignite. She chose frankness over sweetness, edges over curves. What others dismissed as wrong would one day become her most powerful language. Even then, before a single runway or photograph, Eliza had already planted the seed of rebellion. Beneath her rough exterior was a persistence that would one day erupt, proof that being different was not a flaw, but a destiny. Eliza Cummings' entry into fashion was not a glittering fairy tale, but a moment of sheer coincidence mixed with reckless courage. At 16, she followed a friend to London, a city of dreams, but also of scrutiny and sharp judgment. On a rainy afternoon, as crowds rushed past, a scout from a small agency stopped dead in front of her. Eliza wasn't the stereotypical model. Her hair was cropped short, her jawline sharp, her eyes carrying defiance. Yet that was precisely what made him pause. "You don't look like anyone else I've seen. You should try this," he told her. The offer left Eliza torn between fear and excitement. At home, her parents were skeptical. Her mother worried about the false promises of the fashion world. Her father doubted anyone would accept a girl so stubborn, so unwilling to bend. But Eliza's instinct was unshakable. Her difference wasn't a weakness. It was her only chance to break free from the confines of Portsmouth. Her first test was a small studio shoot in London. The blinding lights, the smell of makeup powder, the clicking shutters. It was overwhelming. She froze for a moment, nerves tightening every muscle. Then, suddenly, her head lifted, her gaze hardened, her body straightened into a stance of challenge. The photographer lowered his camera, smiled, and said, "Yes, that's it." That moment changed everything. For the first time, Eliza realized that the very traits mocked in her hometown, her toughness, her refusal to soften, could become her strength. Back in Portsmouth, friends still teased her, and her family's doubts lingered. Yet Eliza had already crossed the threshold. The runway was still a distant dream, but she had seen enough to believe. She knew she could transform the unease in her chest into fire, the skepticism around her into fuel. A door had opened, leading into a world of brilliance and shadows, of praise and pressure, where every step would shape not only her career but her identity. From the moment she signed her first contract, Eliza Cummings' trajectory was like a lightning bolt ripping across the fashion sky. The girl once mocked for being different now carried that very word as her weapon. Within a year of her first test shoot, she walked onto the runway of London Fashion Week. The crowd saw her sharp hair, her cold gaze, her walk that felt more like a slash through the air than a glide. She was not there to decorate, she was there to disrupt. Editors called her the rebel on the catwalk. When ID magazine placed her on its cover, with cropped hair spiking upward, black-lined eyes, and a smirk hidden beneath a torn leather jacket, it was not just an image, it was a statement. Eliza symbolized a generation tired of polish and perfection. She embodied the energy of kids who felt misplaced, who didn't belong, who were desperate for a figure to prove that imperfection could be power. Soon the doors of the great fashion houses opened. Alexander McQueen, Vivienne Westwood, Jean-Paul Gaultier, all wanted her. Each designer saw in Eliza not merely a model, but a character, a narrative brought to life. Under McQueen's harsh spotlight, her angular face transformed into that of a futuristic warrior. On Westwood's chaotic stage, she became a rebel tearing apart convention. For Gaultier, she was contradiction itself, fragile yet ferocious, soft in silence but explosive in motion. Campaigns followed. Prada, Topshop, Stella McCartney. Eliza's face appeared everywhere, not as a glossy beauty but as a haunting reminder that fashion could be raw. Photographers adored her unpredictability. In one frame, she was the vulnerable girl from Portsmouth. In the next, she was a dominatrix of high fashion, commanding the viewer's gaze. "She doesn't pose," one said. "She tells stories with her body." Her walk became her signature. It wasn't fluid, nor sensual. It was sharp, decisive, almost violent, like steel cutting air. Spectators said they could hear her steps even in silence, as though her presence carved itself into the atmosphere. For the audience, her stride was not movement, but message. Fashion was no longer a soft lullaby, it was a battle cry. Paris, Milan, New York, each season tightened her grip on the industry. Haute couture embraced her with a rare enthusiasm, even though she defied its traditions. Eliza did not beg for approval. She carried herself with the arrogance of someone who knew her difference was her worth. She was not a mannequin, she was an auteur, shaping moods, embodying themes, becoming whatever vision the designer dared to create. But success carried its shadows. The industry demanded ceaseless reinvention. Each show, each campaign, Eliza had to outdo herself, to remain the shock, the storm, the anomaly that thrilled editors and stunned crowds. Sleep dwindled to hours on flights. Meals shrank to hurried bites backstage. Her face, once glowing with rebellion, now thinned into sharp exhaustion. She stood radiant on the runway, yet collapsed in solitude off stage. Still, she burned. At that peak, Eliza Cummings was no longer just a name on a lineup. She was a phenomenon. She forced the fashion world to question its own standards, to confront the paradox of beauty and strangeness. To some, she was a muse. To others, a threat. But no one could look away. Her story mirrored that of the 90s Supermodels, who too were once lifted into the stratosphere by their difference, only to battle the merciless demands of the industry. With Eliza, history repeated itself. proof that behind the shimmering catwalk always lurks the dark side of fashion, where every triumph is chained to sacrifice. If Eliza Cummings had stopped at her catwalk triumphs, she would still be remembered as a successful model. But it was her defiance, her refusal to compromise, that elevated her into an icon. While many peers sought to mold themselves into the industry's preferred marketable faces, Eliza stood firm with her cropped hair, her raw intensity, and her refusal to conform to sweetness. There was a moment when a major brand suggested she soften her look, grow her hair long, embrace lighter makeup, cultivate a more commercial charm. Eliza's answer was a flat no. To agree would have meant erasing the very essence that had carried her this far. Her decision marked her as uncompromising, even dangerous to some, but it preserved her truth. And in doing so, she became more than just a model. She became a symbol of resistance. In her rare interviews, Eliza spoke about freedom. "I don't want to be anyone's replica," she once said. "If being different means rejection, then rejection proves I am on the right path." The words struck a chord with countless young people who had felt out of place in a society obsessed with fitting in. Eliza Cummings transcended fashion. She embodied the message that uniqueness itself could be power. Her legacy was not about being flawless, but about daring to exist authentically. That is why she remains etched not only in the memory of fashion, but also in the deeper story of those who fight to stay true to themselves. Eliza Cummings' meteoric rise seemed unstoppable, yet behind the dazzling flashbulbs lay a darker tale, heavy, fragile, and riddled with cracks. The fashion world that once celebrated her was also the machine that demanded she burn at both ends. Fame in fashion is ruthless. It does not wait, it does not forgive, and it certainly does not allow rest. After her breakthrough years, Eliza's schedule turned into a punishing cycle. A morning show in London, an afternoon flight to Milan, a midnight shoot in Paris. Her life became a blur of runways, airports, and hotel rooms. Meals shrank into rushed bites of fruit, sleep collapsed into restless minutes on airplane seats. Each time she looked in the mirror, she saw a thinner face, hollow eyes, a body stretched past its limits. Yet the cameras demanded radiance, the runway demanded strength. The pressure wasn't only physical. The media, fans, and designers all built the image of Eliza the warrior, the untamed rebel who could never falter. But behind that facade, she questioned herself constantly. Was she still Eliza, the girl from Portsmouth, or just a character trapped in the fashion industry's script? The contradiction grew unbearable. Then the headlines hit. Eliza hospitalized after collapsing from exhaustion. Newspapers turned her private crisis into spectacle. The rebel falls. The model who couldn't keep fighting. Social media flooded with concern, gossip, judgment. Some sympathized. Others dismissed her as just another star who burned out too fast. After that, Eliza withdrew. What she intended as a temporary retreat stretched into years. She disappeared from major runways, her name fading from magazine covers. Rumors multiplied. Addiction, obscurity, ordinary life away from the cameras. In truth, Eliza was wrestling with her mind. Interviews hinted at depression, days locked indoors, staring at blank walls, a suffocating silence where once there had been noise and applause. Fashion, once her escape, had become her prison. The difference that once gave her wings was now the chain that bound her. She could not step outside without being recognized as the rebel icon, and yet inside she felt anything but strong. Her silence broke only briefly. On Instagram, she posted, "Remember, behind every photograph is a real person who can hurt, who can fall." The post went viral, shared thousands of times. And then, silence again. The account went dark, her voice vanished, and the absence echoed louder than any runway show. As the industry moved on to the next new face, Eliza lingered like a ghost, not gone, but not present. Her disappearance wasn't simply personal, it was symptomatic of the machine itself, the same machine that had devoured countless others before her. She became a cautionary tale whispered backstage, a name invoked in conversations about burnout, pressure, and the invisible cost of beauty. Her story parallels that of the 90-second supermodels, many of whom also faced collapse under impossible expectations. Once again, the cycle repeated. Glory intertwined with fragility, the blaze of success shadowed by the dark side of fashion. Eliza Cummings had once been fire, but to burn that brightly meant consuming herself. And when the flame finally flickered out, the emptiness left behind reminded the world of fashion's cruelty, how swiftly an icon can disappear, and how deep the silence can cut when the applause stops. When the lights went out and the applause faded, what remained of Eliza Cummings was not just old photographs or past campaigns. She left behind an invisible legacy, proof that beauty does not need to obey a single mold. In an industry once obsessed with polished perfection, Eliza stood as a reminder that roughness, rebellion, and rawness could also define style. Many younger models later admitted they drew courage from her. They dared to keep their hair short, dared to reveal scars, dared to say no to offers that betrayed their identity. That ripple effect became Eliza's true imprint, not a queen of the runway frozen in time, but a symbol of freedom, of rebellion that mattered. Looking back, questions linger. If Eliza had started her career today, in a more open-minded era, would she have lasted longer? Would her fire have burned differently? Perhaps no one can answer. But one thing remains certain. Eliza Cummings never truly disappeared. She lives in memory, in the daring magazine covers, in the stories whispered among fashion's archives. She is the echo that reminds us, difference is not a flaw, it is power. Her story, woven into the same haunting tapestry as the 90-second supermodels, continues to expose the eternal tension between brilliance and the dark side of fashion. And that is why Eliza's name still lingers, not as a faded shadow, but as a lasting spark.